Okay, so I guess we can start off by saying hi, hello.
Hi,
Welcome to
hello.
anxiety, depression, and the real questions.
Yee.
Um, I'm Kimmy.
I,
And this
and
is Jen.
and I am Claire. Because we realized that we
And
did not introduce ourselves last time,
and
ever, and
yep.
that's fine.
And we are very good question. We are very good questions. We
we are
have a lot of
we are
questions.
very good questions.
You
Oh
know, that is a
gosh.
very good question. We are very
Mhm.
good friends. We both have struggles with our anxiety and depression. We also have a lot of questions about life and the world and just how everything works
Mhm.
and how we should approach everything.
Yeah, and we have a lot of words in our
Um,
heads, and
a lot
so
of words,
and we
and
love of each other. We love. I said love of each other. We love each other, and want to get our words out. Um,
yeah.
and
And we
so
both
yeah.
are working through a lot in our lives, I think, as well, that I
Mhm.
think gives us really unique perspectives.
And we're
And we
bored.
talk about these things. That's very true.
Mhm.
And we talk about these things all the time. And we kind of just both realized these are things that a lot of people probably think or have in their heads and just don't voice. And so we figured it can't hurt to put it out there.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Here we
So
go.
today we're going to talk about, today we're going to do Enneagrams
Woo.
and like what does your Enneagram mean like for your mental health, like
Mhm.
how you are, like how you deal with your mental health and stuff.
Mhm.
But before we start, I'd like to say, how are you today?
I I am I don't know. I don't know how I am. I think I'm okay. Like I think I
Mm-hmm.
I haven't done anything all day. And I just looked at my bank account.
Oh, that's not a fun thing to
I
do.
know because I just got updated because my rent for because I'm moving in like a week ish.
Mm-hmm.
My rent is going to be due on the 1st. But because of like
Yes,
all
yes,
the
yes,
extra
yes.
fees and everything, it's going to end up being like pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
haven't gotten paid in a while. And
So
so
that's
it
scary.
just kind of all hit me at once. I was like, ooh, I haven't been like really paying attention to my bank account. And that was not smart. And I just hate, so I had like all these feelings like right before we started. And so I think I like was okay. And now I'm like, no. And yesterday I had like a really intense conversation with my parents where I was like, what if I'm a disappointment and like all this stuff? And they were like, no, but we still had to like talk it through. It's just when you're living at home and you're 24 years old and you're the oldest, for me in my
Mm-hmm.
case, it's just difficult. It's just
Yeah.
difficult. Like I felt myself like regressing to like 14-year-old me. And 14-year-old me was a mess. But I also like kind of need to be a kid a little bit before I go off into the world. So it's like good, bad. I don't know. So that's way too much information about how I'm doing. How are you doing, my dear Kimberly?
You know, I've been
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
It has been a long week.
It
Um,
has.
uh, a lot of stuff has happened. A lot of things have gone down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I finally had a job interview last week.
Yay!
I'm supposed to hear this week, and I've never wanted a job more in my life. Like, I
Ah,
want this job so badly.
my
Like,
fingers are so
I
like.
want to like call him. I want to like call him up and be like, "Hi, I know I interviewed, and I know you said you like tell me in a week, but also like I'm begging you, please give me this
Oh
job."
my gosh, no, don't do that. But have you like
Um,
emailed them being like it's been great or something? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I emailed them
Not
the day
it's been
after.
great, but you know what I mean.
I emailed them the day after and was like, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to interview for this position. I really enjoyed the interview. I enjoyed meeting you, and like I look forward to hearing from you. Basically, is what I
Yeah,
said.
good, perfect.
But then the weekend happened, and there was a death in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh
so
man.
yesterday was visitation. Today was funeral, and it's just been
Jeez.
a lot
I'm
going on with my
so
family.
sorry. Yeah.
Um, but it's been like kind of helping with some of like the up close drama to kind of calm down.
Right.
bigger picture things going on.
Perspective.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so there's that, and it's like that was what brought up the mortality thing that I sent you earlier. Because I just was thinking about like how our culture deals with that kind of stuff.
Oh, it's so weird. Yeah.
But,
very weird.
It's been a week.
Yes.
It feels like it's been ages.
Yeah, like a month.
But at the same time, like it feels like time is passing super quickly, but it also feels like time is passing really slowly.
Exactly.
Because like I know I'm supposed to get either a call or an email this week, and so like
so that feels like forever, but also
it's only Monday, and I just like But at the same time, someone was like August, in a week, and I'm like,
oh.
August is in a week.
That's
okay with that.
See, I'm not gonna think about that. Because, like, it's one thing to be like, yeah. It's one thing to be like, oh, I'm moving in August. I'm moving in August. Yes, I start my freaking PhD program in soon. And I'm moving very soon. And I'm going all the way to Michigan. And August sounded so far away. And now it's in, like, 4 days. And so... and I'm not really like finished packing, like I thought I was, but then I looked at everything yesterday and I was like, there's so much to be done.
It's fine. Just grab a bunch of boxes, throw it all in a box randomly, put a label on it.
You know what, it might have to come down to that, because I was like, well, I should be organized, and then I was like, I don't know if I care that much. Oh, I know, your move was
worried
crazy.
About finding everything I need for and now I'm worried about finding everything I need, like, for the move that's hopefully going to happen very soon.
Hopefully.
To somewhere.
Please. Yes.
Yes,
Please.
And I've been reading more of
that book you were talking about?
I was telling.
Yeah.
Yes.
About dealing with disappointment.
Yes. And it was like talking about like how sometimes we need to be dust because, like we feel like that's the end of the world, but everything like that. I was like, but what if I'm not dust yet? So I can't have this job because I'm not dust yet.
Oh, good Lord, Kimmy. No.
What if I'm not like low enough yet?
Yeah, what if I just need to be knocked lower? Oh, so
like, what if?
You can't what if it to death. You don't have all the information, so you cannot anticipate. And I know about like, do you get your hopes up? Do you not? Like, what other sort of thing? But you don't know until you know.
I shouldn't what if it to death, but I can.
But I do every day. And I like it.
Single day of my life. So we're gonna do Enneagrams. So
Enneagram.
Getting back on topic.
Let's talk about what that is.
Talk about Enneagrams
first.
So according, the Enneagram is a system of personality typing that describes patterns in how people interpret the world and manage their emotions. The Enneagram describes 9 different personality types and maps each of these types on a 9-pointed diagram that helps to illustrate how the types relate to one another. The name Enneagram comes from the Greek. Ennea is the Greek word for 9, and gramma means something that is written or drawn.
Yeah, because it's like a little circle. I mean, it's not a circle, but like it kind of looks like a circle with little arrows for all the different numbers pointing to each other. Okay.
Okay. So the first. So let's just go down the list really fast.
Yes.
It's 1 through 9. So 1 is this because the reformer.
Or the idealist, or the perfectionist, which is you, my dear Kimberly.
Hello.
1 in the house.
2 is. Yeah. What's up? Number 1 all the way. Anyway, 2 is the helper. So caring, interpersonal, demonstrative.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce that word? Because I have a degree in English. It's fine.
Yeah.
Generous, people-pleasing, possessive. Yeah. 3 is the achiever, success-oriented, pragmatic, adaptive, excelling, driven, image-conscious. 4, the individualist, you.
That's me.
The sensitive, withdrawn type. Expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and temperamental.
Don't you just freaking love the descriptions? They crack me up.
It's just straight up. It's just like, this
rude.
is who you are.
It's rude,
it's
honestly.
so mean.
But so yeah, and they're not always like,
Five.
some of the words don't feel like they're right, but then you read more and you're like, oh, never mind. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Like, I think that the way that they don't feel like they're right is the way that we culturally view those
Oh
words
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And if you like look at the definitions, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I always describe 4 as the dramatic one.
5 is the investigator, intense, cerebral type, perceptive, innovative, secretive, isolated. 6 is the loyalist, committed, security oriented, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
7 is the enthusiast, so busy, fun loving, spontaneous, versatile, distractible, and scattered. 8 is the challenger, powerful, dominating type, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. And then 9 is the peacemaker, the easygoing, self-effacing type, perceptive, reassuring.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all of them.
So I don't know, man. Where do you want to start with this? 'Cause
Okay,
it's just kind of
so
an idea.
basically, like, let's see. Let me like kind of start talking, and then because I could talk about this forever. What kind of comes out, we'll just sort of see where we're gonna go with it, if that makes sense. Okay.
Sounds good.
So, in terms of mental health, which is like kind of the main like question that we're wanting to answer, a lot of times, so this is a big thing, a lot of times people who have depression test as a 4, and people who have anxiety test as a 6. So a 4 is again like the dramatic, it's called the individualist, like no one understands me, just like I want to be sad, but like just like feel, just to feel, like me anyway. And then a 6 is like security conscious, like just being kind of like about everything. They're called the loyalist because of the way that they like are like protective of their people, and like will like kind of, yeah, they're just sort of really security oriented. And so a lot of times if you're taking an online test, and you have these mental illnesses, like you will like those will pop up really high. And so that's kind of difficult because the way that we think about like mental health, like as a way to view personality and identity, is like really interesting, because like the fact that I have anxiety like is a part of me, like it is involved in like who I am and how I view myself and how I view other people and like how I function, but also like it's still kind of separate, but finding that balance is really difficult. And then so that's one part, is that like I've talked to like the one person that I've talked to that does not like the Enneagram is because she has so many different like aspects of her identity that she doesn't really know how to like separate, or like how to find that balance between that and just like how she would test on like a personality type scale. But I think she's a 5, which is the one that's all like, I must understand everything. And so I'm like, that's kind of like, you're kind of like confirming my suspicions there, but fine, you don't have to take the test, it's fine. And so that's one thing. And then a lot of times our personality, like understanding the Enneagram can help us like work through our mental health in a better way. Like it can make us understand sort of our core self and like how we react to things when we're under stress, and then what like growth looks like for us. And so that has been really helpful in my mental health journey, is knowing that I'm a 4, and not a 4 because of like, oh, I like experience depressive episodes. I'm a 4 because I'm a 4. And every time I think that I'm not, that's because it's a really 4 move of me to do, to be like, but like, how could that ever fully encapsulate like my true self? Like, I'm so far beyond, like,
Just
I'm
a
probably not
number.
really a 4 because, like, well, that's such a freaking 4 thing to say. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I probably am. And then, Kimmy, if I remember correctly, when you took the like free test, you tested as
want to
a
say
4 and like as a 6, and like all of those were like really high, and like
I
an
think it
8, and
almost. I think it said like 5, and like
it
toward
was
like the
all
wing. Like my wing
over
was
the place,
like it was literally everywhere. Like
everywhere.
the test was just like you are an everything.
You're in everything. We can't know. And it said, I think it said somewhere that you were a 4, and I was like, literally, we're like have completely different core motivations. So I have no, like that's like not correct. But I was like, maybe I'm wrong, but like I really don't think you are. And then I was on this journey until I was like, I'm gonna figure out what Kimmy is, because it really helps me to understand things. Because I have a wing of 5. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place. It's great.
It's fine. That's how we're chaotic. That's
We're
how
chaotic.
this thing
That's
is
how we
gonna
be.
go.
Okay, so you have a number, and then the 2 numbers that are beside you. So I'm a 4, so my wings are a 3 and a 5, because those are the ones next to 4. That's how numbers work. And so your wings kind of compare with who you are, with your own number, and sort of like they kind of go together, and then sort of they can come out at different moments and sort of like impact just the way that you are. So that's where it gets to where there's like, it's not just as simple as like, oh, like you're a 2. Like, because if you're a 2 wing 1, that's, and the like your 1 wing is really strong, then you're kind of different than like another 2 might be. You're just smiling at me, all like smug, as I just go through all this.
I'm also, because I'm listening to you, but I'm also
Okay.
I've got this website that like has all the well, I've got this website that like has all the Enneagram stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like looking at it, and I, since we're talking about type 1 for or we're talking about like what my type is for a
Mm-hmm.
second, and we've like about determined that I'm a 1. I was like, I pulled it up, and it's like basic fear of being corrupt or evil or defective, and I'm like,
Ha.
please stop
Literally,
attacking me.
that's what you texted me earlier this week, but we don't have to talk about
Please
that.
don't. Please don't attack me like this. I don't
No,
like it.
I'm just saying, it's crazy. And so I was on a journey to find out what Kimmy was, and I started reading through all the descriptions, and I saw something, and I don't remember what it was, but I
It was
texted
something
it to
about.
you.
I think it was. I want to say it was something about the perfectionism,
Yeah. And
because
like,
I'm very much a perfectionist, but I'm also like the laziest perfectionist you'll ever
right,
meet in your life.
exactly. And so you're like, well, how could I be the perfectionist? But like, that's not really what it's about. It's not about like, oh, yeah, I just want everything to be perfect. It's more complicated than that. It's this idea of like standards, like that
And
you
like I
hold for
have
yourself and others. Like,
I have very strong standards for myself that I like.
that when you like don't get
When
them,
I can't meet them myself, like I have
you
a
lose
complete
it.
mental breakdown.
You lose it. And so like that's the idea, is that like you feel like you're constantly swinging on a pendulum between like I gotta do it, I gotta be perfect, oh my gosh, I'm literally the worst person in the entire world, I suck, and it's like constantly like, and it's exhausting.
I don't like being
So
attacked like this.
I know, sorry, but I texted you like a screenshot of a paragraph.
It was either a screenshot or like you
like I copy and
pasted
like a
I can't
paragraph,
remember which.
and I sent it to you, and you were like, I'm throwing up, this is so accurate. And
Like,
I was
I
like,
hate it. I hate it.
yes, I figured it out, because now that really helps me when you have like these big stress moments. It really helps me be like, because I want to understand everything, like, okay, like I see where this is coming from, and then I like try to help like talk about like what like good coping mechanisms are for that type, but I'm not always great at remembering. And then another aspect that I just thought of, I could talk about this for days, just stop me whenever you have a thought, is, so in the little diagram boy, circle guy with the little lines, what those little lines are arrows, and they're pointing like to and away the different numbers across the little circle boy. And those numbers, those arrows are pointing to your growth and your stress, essentially. There's like another word for it, but I don't remember what that word is. Like
this side is just using growth and stress.
Okay, good.
So
okay. And so basically, like, for me, I'm a 4. My growth is towards a 1. So, like, what it looks like for me to sort of, like, grow into a more healthy version of myself is to take certain aspects of a healthy 1, which is you, my dear Kimmy, and, like, incorporate that into my personality. Like, that's what it looks like for me to just sort of, like, get beyond some of my unhealthy things. The growth one is really interesting. I'm not as familiar with like how that all works. The best example I have of the growth arrows making the most sense is my dad, who is a 1 also. But he is he's very 7. So 7s are called the enthusiasts, and they're like the fun, like entertainers, like they just like are happy-go-lucky, like go on adventures, like all that stuff. He's very, very 7, but he's a 1, which to me implies, and also he like has gone to a lot of therapy, so like that he is like a healthy version of himself. And like when he's like most like okay with who he is and okay with how the world is when he's most at his 7-ness, which is just like the fun dad that I grew up with. So there you go. That's the best example of the growth arrow that I have. And then the stress arrow has been really helpful for me because the 4 stress arrow points towards a 2, and a 2 is the helper.
Oh my gosh, if that isn't you to a T.
So what happens when I get really stressed is I start to like not be okay unless other people are okay. And see, the problem with that is that I can't control other people. And so if I'm not okay unless everyone else is okay, I'm definitely not okay. And I start to get like where I'm like not really functioning. And
sorry, I'm laughing.
I know. This is like, you've seen this go so many times.
I don't mean to laugh at like you talking about something that's very
it's
emotional.
Hilarious. It's hilarious how bad it gets. Okay. And so I get like, bleh. And so one time I was in this like leadership position at my church, and I think that honestly it was like one of the reasons, because this was like right before my big anxiety like meltdown happened. I think it was a contributing factor, because things got that, like a lot of the people in my group were going through really, 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 really hard things. And I was able to be there for them, but like at a cost. And it wasn't, what I've realized is that it really isn't from a healthy place. Like it's not from like, oh, I'm just being compassionate. Oh, I'm just being like a good friend. It's coming from like this manic, like, I have to fix everything. Like, I like worry, and like my whole identity becomes wrapped up in someone else's stuff. And that is called codependency. And so that has been the reason I'm saying that's the most helpful, is because like part of the Enneagram for me, like learning about what type I am, is being able to identify that when it's happening. Because once I identify it, because it's so ingrained in me, and this is a good thing, it's so ingrained in me that I'm supposed to help others, and that I'm supposed to be like selfless, right? Like, because that's a lot of what we believe as Christians. That's one part, is that I'm like, I'm just being like a good person. But that mindset is so ingrained in me that it was so helpful to realize that I was like, that's like not what was happening. that it was a stress response. And therefore, it isn't actually selfless. It isn't actually like, oh, I'm just such a good person. It's from a place of stress and from a place of like, and I swear I'm not being like super hard on myself, but it's like actually for like a selfish thing in the end, if that makes sense, you know? Like it's not really about them, it's about me kind of. And so you're like,
I don't
ooh.
think that you're being hard on yourself. I think it's you being realistic. Because we've had talks about this in the past.
Yes.
Because there's two instances that pop into my brain specifically when we talked about how this needed to be a thing. And one of them was the user test that went all wrong last year because you were like, you're mad at me and I must fix this. And I was like, but you can't. And then we talked about that.
Well with that.
I think that's the only that's like the biggest fight we've had in our friendship.
Yes, that was definitely the biggest fight.
Definitely the longest one. For sure.
It was terrible.
And it was like a week, but it was still just like, it felt like eternity, and we were mad, and we were sharing an office, so we had to sit there.
It was terrible.
And then another one was when your sister was really stressed, and you were like trying to fix her stress, and she was like, you can't. And then you came to the office and you were like, bah!
It was awful.
And we talked about that, and I like straight up, I was like, I don't want to say that this is like a selfish thing, but like it's a selfish thing. And you were like, oh no, you're right.
Oh my gosh, you were like literally correct.
And I was like, I don't want to be calling you selfish because like I don't think you're a selfish person.
Right.
But, like,
and that's like, that's like not even what I'm saying, is that I'm like, oh, I'm terrible. Like that's not even what I'm getting at. I'm just saying like it's such a helpful realization to me to realize that like that idea, even if it like starts off from like a good motivation, it's just unhealthy, become toxic. And it becomes toxic like that. And like I remember when you were going through a really hard breakup, like it was so like hard for me, and I was like, my therapist was even asking, she was like, why is this like so much for you? Like it's like her going through a thing. And I'm like, I don't know. And so we had to be like, oh, okay, so like that's not like
this
okay,
is an unhealthy trait.
Like other people like have things that they go through. And
that does not mean that you have to go through them
yes,
as well.
like you can, it's the difference. Like she was literally telling me to start engaging sympathy rather than empathy. And I've been always told that like, oh, you should totally like always be empathetic and try to feel what the other person is feeling. We were like, no, actually. I don't need to like try and like feel, like physically feel what another person is going through when they're going through grief or like something terrible. I can instead be
you don't
like,
need to put yourself through that.
because then we're both going through it, and how is that helpful for anybody? And so then I'm
the blind leading the blind.
Like what? Like we're both just sad. I mean, like there's like some merit to it, and some people like need to grow in that area, but like,
you're not one of them.
I am not one of them. And so she was like, what about sympathy? Being like, oh my goodness, I am so sorry that is happening, but I'm over here. You know what I mean? Like I'm here and I'm a person. You're going through this thing and I am so sorry about that, but it's separate because we're two different people.
They're in their bubble of grief and you're standing outside of it going, I'm
this is
sorry.
Terrible and I will be there for you and I will be your friend, but like I'm not gonna like step into that emotion because that actually doesn't help anything. So anyway,
and it's also not healthy.
No, literally not. Like what in the world? And so that has been like the biggest helpful thing for the Enneagram for me is the arrow of stress, because it helps me identify like what the heck is going on and being able to be like, oh, it's a stress thing. Like it's a that's what that is. That's what's happening. And being able to like, okay, well then I can step back from that. It's just really like, it clicks it in my head for some reason. And so for you, Kimmy, you're a 1, your stress is towards a 4. And so, right? Like, right?
Like,
you're like, oh my goodness, yes. Like, I get it. Like, like it
let's
makes
see, right
sense.
here, I can think about when I get stressed. Dramatic,
temperamental,
expressive.
Yes, like everything is terrible. No one understands me. Like, Like there's just no way out of this sadness.
Oh
Like
my
all
gosh.
of this stuff, it just gets real like dark real fast.
Often report they are feeling they feel they are missing something in themselves, although they have difficulty identifying what that something is. Hello,
Exactly.
when I'm upset. Um,
Yeah, and so I
I
was
think
like,
it's
it makes complete sense, and that's also how you know that you found your type is when you like also the arrows and the wings and all of that stuff like also makes sense.
mm-hmm,
And because like and then another thing with the arrows is my sister is an 8 and her growth arrow is towards a 2. So my stress arrow is towards a 2 and her growth arrow is towards a 2. So basically, we both need to be doing opposite things.
which makes complete and
Like
total
she
sense for
needs to be
anyone who has
more
met both of
empathetic.
you.
She needs to be like her at her best self is when she's taking all of her gifts and like using it to like be compassionate towards others. Like that's her at her best. And for me, it's a stress response. And it's kind of me at my worst. Whereas like my growth is towards
Mm-hmm.
being more level-headed, being more black and white actually. Um and being more like like sending like rational thinking, being kind of at the forefront rather just been being fluctuated by my emotions constantly. And you're like, ooh. So we're actually like growing in opposite ways. And so that's like
Mm-hmm.
super
But I think
interesting.
that's good.
I think so too. It's freaking fascinating. And so
Like I think it's hilarious because people think that like, oh, your sisters, so you should be very similar. And it's like
oh,
anyone who has met you and your sister
oh my.
knows that you two are like so similar but absolute
Mm,
opposites.
mm-hmm. Completely different.
Like your
And
personalities are
yeah.
so similar. Like I love watching you all together because it's hilarious.
Jeez, we're freaking
Because you're
crazy.
both like equal amounts of silly, but she doesn't quite show it as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Oh, I
love it when
know.
like she shows her silly because then I'm like, yep, they're
She's
sisters.
hilarious. Oh my gosh. She makes me laugh harder than like anyone else in my life. Um, but she can come across as so stoic to a lot of people. And she's been that way since she was a kid, you know, like super shy and then like she would end up like dancing on a coffee table. Like there was like no in between. You know what I mean?
Well, like, and it's funny
Like
because
as a
before I
5-year-old.
even met her, like before I even met your sister, like I'd heard so much about
I
her and
know.
like how silly she was that she was like kind of stoic when we first met, and I was like, no, I know the real
Yeah,
you.
like
Like
that
I
ain't
don't
right.
know the real you,
I don't know what you're
but
doing,
like
but like that ain't right.
but
Yeah,
Claire's been
exactly.
telling me about you as a person, and
Like I
I know
know.
you're just like her. I
I
know
know.
that
Yeah.
I know that you are just as crazy as she
Oh,
is
I know. It's
when it comes to like
hilarious.
ridiculousness.
So funny.
But I think to go back to like our question for
Mm-hmm.
like what Enneagram means for mental health, I think it being able to like know what type you are is so helpful in your like in growing and just figuring out who you are
Mm-hmm.
and how to deal with your like mental struggles,
Mm-hmm.
because like even like last week, like I was having a a horrible week, and I was talking to you and you're like, okay, so you're a 1, which means
Yes.
your stress is towards a 4, which means you're doing this and this, and I was like, please stop attacking me.
Right, 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 right. And I know
I've been
also,
attacked enough.
I know it can also like almost get
And
annoying, but like
it can almost feel
it's
like you're over rationalizing or oversimplifying it. But at
oversimplifying
the
is a
same
good word for
time,
it. Mm-hmm.
like it's like, okay, no. This is really good because now you can figure out like what direction you need to like what you need to do to help yourself get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it's like, I don't want that because I want to sit here and I want to wallow in it.
Yes, I
And I
know
want to
exactly.
be
Well, it's just like
miserable. Stop telling me how to get better.
right,
Because
and
it'll
like
work
see
and I
that's the
don't want
thing is
it.
that you also can see because of how we were talking that in some ways my intensity of being like okay like this is what you are and like let's see how to fix it it's it's my own stress response. It's my own thing. Like it's my
It's
two-ness
so
coming out, and you're like, okay. So you're like, it's all kind of connected. But like, the people that I've met that don't like it, fair. Like, people who don't like personality types, I completely understand because for
'Cause it feels
one,
like
we
you're
feel a little
being
bit
oversimplified.
horoscopy. Like we're being like, yeah, like I'm a Taurus, like I can't get with that person because like they're like a Gemini or whatever. And you're like, or like, you know, just it's me as a Hufflepuff, like it's fine, or like whatever. I'm a Ravenclaw, by the way.
We can have
we can have that conversation.
We can have one. We can have that conversation later.
And so some people are like, I don't really like. It's not helpful for them to like take a stupid little quiz on the internet, especially since usually it's not accurate, and that's a whole other thing. And it feels like you're being put in a box. And some people that I know, I legit can't figure out what they are. Like I can't figure out which number they are. And it feels limiting to only have 9 and like all this stuff. But what I was saying about wings, sorry, before I forget this thought, is that my sister's an 8, like I was saying, but like she is specifically an 8-wing 9. Like she's not just an 8, and she's certainly not an 8-wing 7. She is an 8-wing 9. And so an 8 is called the challenger, and a 9 is called the peacemaker. So you're like, how in the wide world do those two go together?
Does she do this?
And so, but that specific combination of traits, and when you look at like specific 8-wing 9 descriptions, that I found on a different website once, I looked up like 8-wing 9, and there was this like article about it. We were reading it, and we were like, oh my gosh, because she never tested as an 8, because she's not like an 8, she's an 8-wing 9. And when you don't have that wing as a strong influence, it throws it all off. And so she tested as a 5, but it didn't seem right as a 3, as a 1, as everything. And we were like, that's not right. And we read 8-wing 9, and we were like, this is perfect. Because it's like, it's almost like an introverted, like, 8, which is the challenger, that it can be confrontational. So how is she supposed to be confrontational if she's an introvert? Like, she uses her sense of, like, to, like, kind of, like, keep the peace. It's really interesting. It creates the most, like, it's so strange that, like, you won't see her, like, come out and, like, she's never gonna, like, fight somebody. You know what I mean? But she'll have, like, really strong opinions about things and really see the world in this certain way. And it'll just be, like, strong sense of justice and all that stuff. And so I just think that's really interesting, is that you also have to take that into account, because the tests don't always take that into account. And so sometimes it's like you really are kind of like this weird combo. And that might be like why some people don't really like seem to fit any of the types. Because we all are unique. Like everyone is different. And a lot of the aspects of the 4, for me, like don't always like feel correct. And they feel more like teenage Claire version rather than like who I am now. But like that's kind of the point, is that when you kind of look deep into yourself and like at your core, like not your learned behaviors, but just like your responses, your motivations, like why you do what you do. For me, it all comes down to identity. Like, who am I? That's like the big question. And that's what the 4 is supposed to be kind of all about. That's the question that motivates them, that drives them, that they're always trying to like figure out. And that is what it all comes down to me. So that's what makes me a 4. So it's really about the like key motivation. And like all of the other aspects of like, maybe you like react this way. Like I follow a lot of Enneagram meme pages. And they always like make 4s being like, don't talk to me, I'm sad. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Like that's not, it's not accurate.
But it's like,
I don't like being
it's
sad.
More of it's generalized thing.
Oh yeah, it's totally generalized.
Overall applies like when you look deep enough.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, because there's only 9, it has to be in a sense broad.
Oh yeah. So you're like, that doesn't make sense.
Fit.
And then also you meet other people that's their type, and you're like, wait a second. Maybe you don't like them, or like, no, they're very different than me, or whatever. And so you're like, how could that be? Core motivation is what it comes down to. How that manifests itself, very, very different for all different types of people, especially in your stage of life. So you have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everyone's different. Everyone's different in each stage of life. Like, it's just so...
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I finally got my
like,
dad into Enneagram, finally.
I don't think I could get my parents into Enneagram, honestly. I'd be very curious to, like, see what my parents are.
Mm-hmm. That'd be really interesting.
But I don't know if I would ever be able to get them into it. I mean, I could try, maybe.
Who knows?
But, yeah, I think... I don't know whether I'm a 9-wing or a wing 9 or a wing 2. I think I would be a wing 9, honestly, though.
Interesting,
because
yeah.
it's like the idealist. It says like Enneagram 1 with a 9 wing is like idealist.
Yeah.
But with a 2 wing is an advocate. So I'm like, could be either one.
I don't know.
I could be equal.
Yeah, you could be, because I feel like I don't really know which one I am. Between my 2 wings.
Yours 3 and 5.
Because sometimes I feel like it's definitely a 3, especially since my mom is a 3. So I feel, and I'm really similar to her, that I like feel these like, because a lot of 3s like people pleasy stuff. And I'm like, there you go, another aspect. But then a 5 is the part where like I need to understand everything. And so both of those things are true. I honestly
would say that you're very even too.
Yeah, I'm both.
Because like they're both. Really am. You're both. Like,
and I've noticed that like they both have to do with my anxiety too, like different aspects of it. And then I feel like when my anxiety was really, 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 really high, it was really leaned into the 5 part of me, because it was like big existential questions and being like, like all the time. That exact noise.
And like
24/7.
You get like when you're in existential territory, like you like are not okay.
That's bad news bears right there. You know,
like it's like I can tell like whenever anything existential comes up, you're just like you kind of like I can see like the brain, like your brain just being like, we don't like this.
Yes. Well, it's because of like what set off on my anxiety was like really like big, like what happens when we die, and just horrifying, like just horrifying, like, and so I now try to like stay away from it.
But I think something that's interesting about it is it can both help you be really healthy about how you approach and productive about how you approach your mental health and how you need to deal with all of it. But then it can also be very like, it's so easy to dwell on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it kind of reminds me of a little bit of like the Myers-Briggs stuff.
Yeah, I don't like my Myers-Briggs.
It's kind of similar. My Myers-Briggs attacked me the first time I found out what I was.
And I'm not even sure mine is accurate because I don't necessarily believe in, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say. It's again pretentious. Here we go.
Oh no.
I'm not sure I believe in the dichotomy of extrovert versus introvert. Actually, I'm sure I don't. And so that's a really difficult thing because that's like one of the main like differences that they make with the Myers-Briggs is like basically like an INFJ, which is what I've always tested it as, is really different than an ENFJ. And recently when I feel more extroverted, I answer the questions differently. And those personality types are completely different from one another. And so I'm like, well, then who am I? So,
are you okay? Did you just choke?
We're good. But yes. So yeah, I apologize for using the word dichotomy in this simple little podcast that we've created.
It's not allowed.
But
I'm kicking you off the podcast.
I'm just saying that's just that word is really pretentious, and I apologize. But that's the point remains that it's too simple. It's too one or the other, and that's not true. That's not how people are at all. So anyway,
see, mine is so spot on because I'm an ENFP, and it's the campaigner. And the first time I've just pulled it up because I will never forget how it attacked me.
Oh,
Because I found out mine like it was I think it was a year after a really like this was before we were close. Like that was the class we met in.
mm.
Um, 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
But
Oh,
we
yeah.
it was yes I know yeah
In Dr.
and
Bear's class, we took it in class. Yes, we did.
yes
We did.
and we because he was like I want y'all to know like how you're gonna work with your groups, and it was funny because I can't remember what my team members were, but like we looked at each other and we were like, yeah, that's you.
Yes, yes.
She leaned over and she looked at mine and I was like, I think it got me. But I remember reading it because this was like after a really bad point in my like because my big anxiety breakdown was a year before that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in part because of like whatever that relationship that I had was like
Mm-hmm.
whatever disaster that was,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like oh, where is it? There's a do 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 crossing so you think it's me. I'm trying to find. Oh, yeah, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
Campaigners go all in with their relationships. True. And if they fall apart despite their efforts, they can end up plagued with questions about why their relationship failed and what they could have done differently. Without a buoy, these thoughts can crush the campaigner's self-esteem.
And
as
you're
they
over
sink
there
into
like,
depression. And I was like, why must you attack me this way?
yes.
So, like,
Mine, yeah.
So my
similar
Myers-Briggs
thing.
is like literally spot on.
Yeah, yeah. Mine is I'm not. I've always tested as an INFJ.
Which I never see myself as an extrovert really. I see myself as like a combination.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. That's what I was saying. But like I've always tested in the I range, and me in that group, another girl in the group was also an INFJ, so we were both the same. So we were like, great. And then, but yeah, they're like, again, really feely, really touchy-feely, like not touchy, lol. Because it also talks about, this is a really interesting one, and I've always thought it was interesting in thinking about myself. It says that they can be private, which I'm like, lol. I talk about like my deep inner thoughts like freaking all the time with like random strangers. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, yes, when I have mental health and like all this stuff. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, you just blew your mic out. Okay.
That's why I think it was funny. Okay, anyway. Yeah, and so I'll just like talk about stuff like that all the time. So I was like, private, I'm not private. And then I was thinking about it
But you are private about aspects.
But I'm private about some things. And then
Mm-hmm.
I seem to have like, I have this like degree of separation. And I have noticed one of my main things is like a struggle with romantic relationships, that I like do not like trust anybody enough in like that way for like that type of intimacy. Like I think it's like a privacy thing, like whatever it is that it said, like whatever it is about that personality type that says something private, it's whatever that is I think what I see in myself when I like analyze my history with dating is that I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, nope, like nope, so much nope all over the place. I refuse to be vulnerable in that way. And so which is just hilarious, but like here we are. And so if you've ever wondered, Kimmy, you're like, oh, like Claire's so adorable, which is true. I'm so adorable. Like if you've ever wondered why like why isn't she like dating or whatever, that's why, or at least I think that's why. So anyway.
It's so like hilarious to think about
Right?
how different traits can point in different directions and
Mhm.
like what that means.
What that
Because
means.
like just looking into, because there's so many different like personality quizzes and
Oh
what
yeah.
kind of person are you, blah, blah, blah. But I think what got me most about the Enneagram is like how broad but thorough.
It's thorough.
Because like you think like, oh, there's only 9, that's so broad, but but
Mm-hmm.
then you start looking into it and you're like,
Holy crap. And I remember one time when I figured out what my friend Cheyenne was, we were laying, it was like at night and we were in a park. We were laying like on a picnic blanket looking up at the stars. And I was on my phone and I was like reading it and I was like, and an avoidance of pain. And she was like screaming. She was like, ah, that's literally like my whole life. She's like, I just gotta keep going, 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 because she's a 7. And so it's like, you think 7 and you're like, oh, she's so fun. Like everything's just great all the time. And then when you read the description, because like everyone's like, I just want to be a 7. Like 7 would be the best one. 7 seems to be the most flattering. You read it, it is not flattering. It is all about comfort seeking and not being able to deal with things. So you're like, who? Like,
it's like,
can't
please
stand
stop.
still and like deal. So it's just next thing, next thing, next thing. You're like, ugh, yikes, you know, like,
If I didn't just find out what my boy is, I found out what his wing is.
mm.
Or his stress is. So who's a stress 7 here? Whose stress goes
know.
towards 7? Because
Ooh.
I just figured out. He might be a 5.
Oh yeah, that actually would make sense to me if he was a 5.
It would make a lot of sense. Because I'm like, avoidance of pain.
And like how kind of like the word introverted is not the word I'm looking for, but he just sort of seems like the type of person that's in his head a lot.
Reserved.
Yeah,
He's very reserved and he's very
like in his head always kind of thinking. He's always thinking and he has all these thoughts. And you're like, oh well,
He's
I have to
making
figure
these
this.
faces.
And he's like over there like tinkering with like a computer or something.
Everything.
And like and yeah, kind of reserved, but then like stresses towards 7. Like yeah. Oh, I love it.
He is definitely a 5 because growth is towards an 8, which is an 8 at their best, self-mastering, use their strength to improve others' lives, heroic, magnanimous, inspiring.
Yep.
But like 5 is, I think he might be a 6 wing because it's the 6 wing is the problem solver.
Yep.
Which is what he tries to be. He hears a problem and he goes, well, this is how to fix it. And I'm like, stop it. Stop telling me to fix it.
Exactly.
Listen to my problem and let me complain.
Like, I want to.
He's just like,
wallow, please.
And he's like, I can't fix it. And I'm like, I don't want you to.
And there you go. But like knowing that about yourself and about the other person and being like, that's what's so helpful is being like, okay, so they're not like handling things the same way I am. And like you realizing that you have like a need to wallow, but ultimately you need to be like growing in a direction of being like, okay, I need to be thinking this through and all this stuff. And that he needs to realize you do need that time, but how to use that helpful problem solving skills to like actually like be helpful when you need it rather than his just like initial reaction. And so there you go. You've just figured out your whole relationship. I've solved everything. You're welcome.
And what's funny is that my growth is 7 and his stress is 7.
His stress is 7.
So
see, isn't that
we're
hilarious?
like legit opposites.
Yes.
So like I focus my
you
talent
need to
on
be
worthwhile
more
goals,
easygoing,
becoming appreciative, joyous, and satisfied, and he's just like, I don't want to feel pain.
Exactly. It's so funny. It's so funny.
I think I love these because I feel like they can tell you so much about like how to deal
Because
with
it's about
grief and with like everything, and especially like right now when going through a lot of grief,
right,
and like
right,
and a lot of like hard times. It's
like
so interesting to think
about all of
about
this stuff, like all of this COVID stuff, and all of this like the terrible job market, and like really just 2020, and then you recently had a death in the family, and like how like understanding a little bit more about who we are, and how we react to things and what it looks like to be like a growing, not like a perfect version of ourselves, but a growing person of ourselves that's not just reacting to stress all the time. Like, understanding that, I think, is just like really helpful.
And it helps you keep sanity.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And just sort of
like if you're
kind of
just
bring
someone
things back.
If you're someone who's just constantly reacting to stress, like that's not really a life.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's just, and that's something that
Yeah.
Tyler and I were talking about not long ago. He was like, you're very much someone who like is not okay with just surviving. And he was like, you're very much someone who like survival is not living to you. And I was like, please stop. Because he was like, you obviously don't see like that is a life worth living. And I was like, please stop. Because this is like, I know you know me very well, but I don't like what you're saying, whether it's true or not. I don't like it.
Oh, I know. This is
I've
blue.
become someone who's like, I'm not. What flavor did you get?
Blue coconut. I told them to surprise me, and this is what they got. You can already see my teeth are starting to be blue. And also, one of Kimmy's friends listened to our last podcast and was like, OMG, why is she eating on a podcast? Because I had a snow cone. And the answer, friends, is that I don't give a crap about anything. I love to snow cone. And there you go.
I think they also said something about like, you were all over the place, and I was like, yes, hello, welcome to chaos.
Oh, heck yes. Just be ready for that.
That's our tagline. Tagline.
Oh,
welcome
yeah, I like that. That makes us sound badass, honestly. Like, welcome to the chaos. Like, welcome to the pain dome.
Are we causing pain?
I
wasn't aware.
Our own heads are the dome of pain. Don't at me. Okay, we're good.
I'm gonna at you. I think we've about hit the end of what we can talk about with this. So
I'm so sorry. I feel like I interrupted you a lot too.
No, you're fine.
I love you.
We both interrupt each other a lot. So
oh yeah, all the time.
We just have a lot of thoughts, and then we just have to like shove them in. But thank you for listening to episode 2 of Anxiety, Depression, and the Real Questions.
Woohoo.
We'll see you next time.
We'll see you when we see you. Woo. Bye.